Well, welcome everyone. We are so glad that you're here. Um, I am Jan Jeremias, one of your hosts today. I'm an integrative health and wellness coach and author who works with people and their pets to empower them to overcome health challenges and live healthier lives. And I'm very excited to be joined on stage with my co-host, collaborator, and dear friend, the amazing and very kind Mary Jane McQueen. And so, Mary Jane, introduce yourself, share a little bit, and let's begin.
It's awesome, Jen. I always love your introduction. I'm always like, wow, that just makes my Friday. It's like, it feels like, it's just a warm introduction. So I love that. So welcome, everyone. And I know most of you know who I am, but just for those that might be listening to the recording, um, perhaps I'll share a little bit about myself. So yes, I am Mary Jane or MJ. And I have my own creative studio. I'm a graphic designer that really helps entrepreneurs step into their light and helps them to share their gifts authentically. So, through the beautiful collaborative workshops that I do with Jan, and through some mentoring and stuff through my own business, I help people to overcome self-doubt, finding their voice, and creating visuals that really align with their mission. And as always, I'm honored to be here and honored to share the stage with Jan. So I think without further ado, I will proceed with the next step. Is that all right with you, Jan, or did you have something to add?
No, 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 no. Feel free to begin with our poem.
Yes. So bear with me. This is a little bit longer poem today, but it's a lovely one, and it's called "Healing Your Inner Wounds," and it's by Patricia Pixie, and it's like this. There is still hope, dear darling. In the depths of your soul, where scars reside, lies the power to heal, to let pain subside. For within you a resilience takes flight, a journey of healing guided by inner light. The wounds that linger hidden from view hold stories of battles fought and truths renewed. They whisper tales of hardships endured and the strength that arises when you're reassured. Healing your inner wounds, a sacred quest, a dance with vulnerability at its behest. It begins with acknowledging the pain you bear and nurturing the broken pieces with tender care. Embrace the darkness, let it see the light, for healing starts when you choose to fight. With each breath, release what no longer serves, allowing space for growth and the love that preserves. Healing your inner wounds requires patience and grace as you navigate the depths, finding your sacred space. It's a journey of self discovery and self love, unearthing buried treasures rising above. Unravel the layers with gentle hands, explore the depths where your essence demands. Nurture the wounds with compassion's embrace, allowing healing energy to take its rightful place. Breathe in forgiveness, exhale resentment's hold. Let go of the stories that have left you cold. Healing your inner wounds like petals unfurl, revealing the beauty of an awakened soul. Embrace the whispers of self compassion's song, for within you a love story waits to belong. Cultivate self care like a garden in bloom, healing your inner wounds, dispelling the gloom. Seek solace in nature's gentle embrace. Allow its serenity to reflect your inner grace. Find peace in the rhythm of the ebbing tide as it washes away the pain you can no longer hide. Healing your inner wounds, a sacred dance, a chance to reclaim your innate resilience. With each step forward, you reclaim your power, transforming wounds into wisdom hour by hour. Embrace the support of loved ones near, their presence a balm wiping away tears. Let their compassion guide you through the storm, reminding you that you are never alone. Healing your inner wounds is a journey of growth, a path to wholeness where your spirit knows you have the strength to rise and mend, embracing your scars as a testament to transcend. In the depths of your soul, healing awaits, a sanctuary where love and light create. Embrace the process, trust in your own pace, and witness the miracles as you reclaim your space. Healing your inner wounds, a courageous endeavor, a testament to your strength, a love that's forever. Embrace the journey, for you are worth the fight, healing your inner wounds, restoring your inner light. Such powerful words, and may they speak to your heart.
So welcome, everyone. Yeah, a very, very powerful poem. To Healing in Layers. Healing is a deeply layered process, unfolding over time as we navigate the complexities of our emotions, experiences, and personal growth. Unlike a wound that simply closes and disappears, emotional and spiritual healing occurs in stages, much like peeling back the layers of an onion or the rings of a tree. Each layer reveals new insights, old wounds, and deeply held beliefs that may have shaped our perceptions and behaviors. And some of these layers may be light and easy to release, while others hold pain that has been buried for years, surfacing unexpectedly when triggered by life's challenges. True healing is not a linear journey, but a cyclical one, requiring patience, self-compassion, and a willingness to revisit wounds that may not have fully healed. Just when we think we have moved past something, a familiar emotion or situation may bring it back into focus, not as a setback or to make us feel inadequate or like we can or like we cannot overcome some trauma or challenge, but as an opportunity to heal more deeply. And each time we revisit these layers, we bring greater awareness and understanding, allowing us to process what was once too painful to face. Over time, this gradual unraveling leads to integration, where pain is no longer a source of suffering, but a teacher that has shaped our strength and our resilience. Healing in layers means recognizing that we are constantly evolving. And as we grow, we gain new perspectives that help us reframe past experiences with greater wisdom and self-compassion. While scars still may remain, they become symbols of our ability to endure, transform, and emerge stronger. The ultimate goal of healing is not to erase the past, but to integrate it into our story, allowing us to move forward with a sense of wholeness. Through self-reflection, mindfulness, and gentle acceptance, we create space for renewal, turning our wounds into sources of wisdom and growth. So today we gather in this space of healing and reflection, honoring the wounds we have carried and the scars that tell our stories. Healing is not about erasing the past, but about finding peace within it. Some wounds close quickly, while others need time, attention, and compassion to fully mend. And sometimes, just when we believe we are healed, life reopens what we thought was resolved, reminding us that healing happens in layers, each one revealing something new. So let us take this time together to embrace our own unique healing journeys. With open hearts and gentle awareness, we invite renewal, allowing each layer to be seen, acknowledged, and integrated. And here in this shared space, we give ourselves permission to heal, to transform, and to step forward with strength, wisdom, and grace. So, Mary Jane, my friend.
Yes, Jan. It's such powerful observations. Thank you for bringing those to our attention for sure. And it's true. That healing journey is really a multifaceted one. It's really sometimes we don't always understand what's happening, but it's always an important process for the healing to be able to look at those things, you know. It's it's really sometimes it's identifying what actually the core wound is, you know, what what actually is the root of the cause of our pain. Sometimes it's not always obvious. It can be buried be so many, between so many layers of that scar tissue that sometimes we've almost forgotten what that is. But it's really important for our own well-being and to help us to unlearn the limiting beliefs we put on ourselves, really to help us reframe, um, you know, really what we're going through and why we're feeling the way that we're feeling. There's no wrong in it. It's literally just the learning and relearning, which is part of life. So I just and it's being self-aware, right? As we transform, um, even when sometimes it hurts and we don't want to look at it too closely.
Mhm, mhm.
Speaking from personal experience.
Yes, yes. But I think that, it took me a long time to realize that we heal in layers. I think being as analytical as I am in so many ways, I kind of looked at it as something I was going to check off on my to-do list. Like, okay, healed this, done. And when it would resurface, it was almost like with this feeling of total like almost anger or like impatience with myself, like I wasn't over something already. And I think some of that is society's kind of assumption that you get over something or the way people say things. I mean, the comments I would get around certain circumstances, like, you're not over that already. And feeling like there was some sort of timeline, which I think this sort of this kind of erases that to me, or like makes it feel like there is really no timeline at all, because you do have things you heal and then something happens and all of a sudden you get like it sort of brings it back up to the surface again. And it's this feeling like, I know I've said this to myself, like I thought I was over that already. I don't know if anybody else has said comments like that.
Oh, me.
Yeah, I can't believe that still bothers me, is another one. And I think we have this feeling like like it's one and done, and then all of a sudden something happens and it brings it back to mind. You might even have that tinge of sadness and that real deep feeling of like hurt or despair. And then you have to look at it and examine it a little further. And then I do feel that you heal it on a deeper level. And I think some of that is when certain things happen, they're too painful in the beginning. So we do have to, function in the world, and we go out and we process it to some extent. But I think over time, um, that's what time is, it's just healing deeper and deeper and deeper and having it integrating and learning each time. I think of the circumstances that I've had, it's like every time it resurfaces or I talk about it, not in a sort of ruminating kind of way, but I share the story, all of a sudden, you know, you learn more and you integrate more and you learn more about yourself and you learn more about other people. And all of a sudden it becomes so much clearer, to be able to, what was the actual circumstance and what was the pain around it, and, all the people that were involved.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so important like to allow those repressed feelings to surface and be addressed because really that's the only path that I've found so far by doing that of moving forward and being able to maybe take on some healthier viewpoints about what's happening. Um, I had a wonderful mentor in the past few years that, her, one of her common phrases is that, it's not happening to me, it's happening for me. And flipping that script and looking at it from that perspective is just an amazing tool to have because like I know it's hard when you're in the thick of it sometimes to see it that way. Um, but by sort of looking at the thing, it's like, okay, what is the lesson I'm meant to learn here? Because obviously there's a lesson that I still need to learn if this is coming back again and again. And for me, again. So,
Again. No, I agree. And one of the things you said, really, because I do think what ends up happening is otherwise you feel, life is happening to you and
mm,
you go into um, that victim mode.
yes,
And I think that if you view it the way you just mentioned it, of like, it's happening for me, for my evolution, for my development, for my growth, then it's less about being a victim and
yes,
more about um, literally transforming yourself in some
absolutely.
way, and so, and in some way navigating the world better with more understanding and compassion. Because that's the one thing as we were preparing that really resonated with me is like, that whole view that I mentioned of being so judgmental of myself, like
Hmm.
the fact that I was supposed to be on some sort of timeline in this healing process. And why was it like I still in the same place, or why was it resurfacing? And that was to have compassion for myself with the process. And I think
Absolutely.
that's one thing this whole process of healing has taught me is compassion,
Yes.
passion.
You're
And
speaking my language, Jan, kindness,
yeah,
empathy, and compassion to self first.
yes, I know I am. And no, it's really true though, because I think that all of a sudden you realize, like, oh my gosh, this was a deep hurt. And this was really traumatic. And I think sometimes those experiences that are traumatic are almost like, they're not easy to deal with, but they're very obvious to us of
Mm,
like, oh, okay, this happened to me and it was monumental and my life changed going forward. But I think we have all these little things that happen. And sometimes we go through life and all of a sudden it might not be something as severe as, really horrific trauma, but our life starts to become altered and we
mm,
have some aspect of our life that's not working. And I think if we look at those situations, um, more like deeper, or we start to look at those situations and shine light on them, we can sometimes look for those things that you mentioned of looking beneath the layers and seeing what's the root cause of it. Like, where are they coming from?
mm.
And then we can start to shine a light on those things and grow. Like, we don't need this. It's not like we need to be hit over the head with a severe illness to change our life toward living a better, healthier life, even though most people don't do much until they get that real wake up call. And I feel like the same is true for, let's say, um, living our most optimum life. Like, if we start to look at our lives as to like, oh my gosh, I'm not happy,
Yes.
or whatever I'm doing, like my job gives me no joy anymore, or whatever it is, or I'm not happy in this, this friendship or this relationship.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, well, what's this really about? And Seamus's word, you get curious about it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, the getting curious about it is absolutely true. And it's interesting. It's interesting, isn't it? It's though, it's like, we always feel, sometimes we feel like when the wounds get reopened or they feel like they're something is piling on top of it. Um, we feel like, what, like, oh, what are we going to do with this? But the thing is that when we become aware, when we become sort of, we recognize something, I mean, as each layer happens, we become more attuned in some sense to the fact that perhaps there's an awareness of why um, we're reacting in the way that we're reacting, and
Mhm.
it's just I love this. It's just a wonderful it's a wonderful juxtaposition we find ourselves in when we're relearning, of course. So
Absolutely. And you used my word. I was just gonna, it was a word that came to my mind, and that was awareness.
yes. I am not surprised we came up with the same word because it's like you send it to me by
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Seamus?
Yeah, thanks, Jan, thanks, MJ. Yeah, beautiful, like poem and conversation. And as you were speaking, a couple of words came to mind, like we band-aid things. It's a very common cliche. I think probably everyone here is aware of. Like, we notice and we temporarily soothe, but we don't necessarily resolve. And that's kind of what was coming to mind as you were speaking. We soothe but we don't really allow ourselves or feel we have the ability or the courage or we're ready to be able to get down to really understanding root cause. And it kind of goes back to what Divine spoke about last week as well, was around having the presence of mind to engage in the situation, um, and retain or maybe even suppress temporarily what how we're feeling, because again it's back to noticing and getting curious. Oh, this interaction, what's going on here, this situation is really triggering me. I feel like really that I want to say something, but I suppress it temporarily. And that's kind of what's coming to mind. Many people's lives, maybe, and I kind of include myself here, for many years of suppressing something that I knew didn't feel right. I kind of band-aided it. I was soothing it. The wound remained open, and I never really got down to having the courage to really understand where this pain was coming from. And until I began to open that door to really get, again, I was thinking of the word curious before you mentioned it, but there's great power, I think, from my own experience, in allowing yourself finally the courage to get curious with something that you know is within you, that you've band-aided for many years, that you've soothed, but you haven't resolved. And, from that, living with that burden or with that pain inside without really, really allowing yourself to resolve it, I think the smallest things can actually come to the surface very, very quickly off the back of continuous soothing and not resolving. And I think when you do then begin to realize, and finally, for whatever reason, maybe it's age or maturity or whatever it is, you finally realize that this isn't going away, that you finally, pain that you're experiencing not engaging becomes greater than the pain of actually living through this. I think that's a tipping point for a lot of people. And again, my own personal experience was that when I began then finally to realize and have the courage to go in and examine and get curious with what was going on, there was almost an immediate release of, now I'm beginning to kind of go back to what Mary Jane talked about, the layer beneath the soothing. Okay, I'm allowing and creating an environment now where I can actually begin to soothe a little bit deeper. The healing is actually beginning to occur at a layer deeper than the superficial layer that I have been engaging and resolving and working through whatever this burden has been for years. And then you begin to experience, oh, okay, do you know what? This feels right. I'm going to continue to actually go a layer deeper, a layer deeper, a layer deeper, to allow myself to actually experience what it feels like to finally have the courage to actually get into really resolving what's going on here. And again, it's coming up in a bit of work like Jan and I have been doing with 5 other people around this process of compassion, of empathy, beginning with ourselves, that allows us to heal literally from our inside out, and to honor and love ourselves in a way that we felt we couldn't. And that's again my own experience of feeling myself of being less than and not worthy of. And then when you engage with that, understand that, and get curious with it, again, that can be a great way to actually feel that you're soothing and resolving and getting down to root cause that allows you to show up and better honor who you really are, what you stand for, express with more courage than you ever felt you could before, and then encourage others and invite others to do the same, basically. So I just love the conversation because I think it takes a lot of courage and a lot of curiosity, but there's also great power when you allow yourself to take that first small step and experience the power of going there and the immediate benefit of that. It really acts as rocket fuel, I think, to really continue that journey to actually liberate yourself literally from your inside out, I suppose, John. And that's kind of what's coming to mind right now, you know?
Absolutely. And I love that, Seamus. And a few things like, I mean, came to me while you were speaking. And that is, I think, I know about from my own experience, what ended up happening were, it was almost as I began to peel away the layers, there were, let's say, layers I wasn't ready to peel back, but yet I saw how they were influencing my life. Like I saw the belief systems that I had created around those layers. And all of a sudden I look at it and I'm like, oh, and I think what happens when you have a belief system that you now see, some I have actually, like are dissolved. I've worked at getting rid of, but what happens is, and you have a belief system like that, all of a sudden it's this element of responsibility that happens. It was like, oh my gosh, like this hasn't manifested in my life because I am resistant to it. There's a wall that I have built, some sort of wall, some sort of belief that I've put up around that's preventing that. And it's to see that is like, so even if you can't necessarily change it or you work to change it, and it's like, it's like chiseling away a mountain with a little, little hammer, like, but even one little bit at a time, is to move forward, but you see it and it becomes, I don't know, there's this element of self-compassion. And I'm reminded of something that Eric Zimmer from The One You Feed says a lot. And it says, little by little, a little becomes a lot. And that's what I think about with that kind of, but it is that kind of almost like you've pulled away the curtain and all of a sudden you're like, oh, like this is not the world around me and something that's, the world is against me or something but something that's within me that I'm responsible for. And if I want to change this, I have to do the work, so to speak. And I know things like, some of those words like responsibility and work are negative words in our time. I look at them as positive, but a lot of people don't.
The thing is that as long as we become happy in our work, whatever it is, whether it's working through our wounds or what we're doing for a living, it can become our greatest joy if we feel that we're living our purpose and following our mission and vision for what we would like to see in the world. So work is not such a bad thing.
No, not at all. Not at all. But if anybody else would like to share, feel free to raise your hand and come up. We'd love to hear from you. But I think had a wonderful conversation, beautiful conversation with Jen yesterday, and we were talking about, and she mentioned something, and I might say this wrong, so maybe Jen, you'll come up and correct me. But it was something like when you're done with this process, basically, you've moved on from this existence. And I think that's the other sort of, like image that this is going to be happening. We're going to keep on healing on a deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper level throughout our lives. Because things do resurface, reminds me something very concrete, and just like, I guess, because it's also somewhat new, was many of you know that last week or 2 weeks ago was the anniversary of my dad's passing. And yes, I've I miss him and I think about him every day, but just that day, there was this element of, all these different emotions that happened on that day, from feeling, loss and sadness to like joy, because there were many memories that came flooding back that were happy. And I think it's one, few things that always come to mind is being able to hold two different emotions at once or multiple emotions at the same time. Like you can be sad and joyful or miss somebody and still be happy at the same time. And then also, it was this other layer of healing, as those memories were recalled and that day came back. It's just another process that actually brings me closer to him, as opposed to further away.
That's so true. It's there it is an interesting human experience, right? To be able to have both of those things, or those many sides of the emotions happening all at one time. I think that's what makes us fully human for for sure.
Absolutely.
And it's you brought up a really good point. It's like really, that healing, as we were talking today, happens in layers. And it's like, realizing how all of these things are all interwoven together, and that we can only heal at the pace that we are meant to heal at. There is no race. It is, we heal as we heal. It's like the grieving process too, it's just like it's not linear. It sometimes moves forward, sometimes it goes in squiggly lines, and sometimes it just keeps circling round and round until we actually pay attention to what the core root of that is. So it's just it's a blessing and a curse of being human, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think, and sometimes we even feel like we move back, like we're
Yes,
moving
that too.
backward. It's like something happens and we temporarily go to this, like, where we get really upset or really sad, or we have let's say extreme emotional expressions, and then we almost feel like we've moved backwards. And then, I've always found that that's not the case, because usually, especially if it's a traumatic experience, you do bounce back, and you bounce back quicker in my experience anyway. But sometimes I do feel like it feels like, you're moving backwards. And so I know Sue had her hand up, I think, first. Sue, did you want to share something? Sue? Okay. Well, maybe she is having technical issues. Jen, feel free to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, so I wanted to share a little bit about, just add something to this context of having layered emotions, like feeling two different things at one time. As you know, Jan, I work with horses, so whenever I am in front of a horse, or I have somebody else in front of a horse, and there's those layered emotions, what I've learned is that there's almost like an authentic emotion, and then there's emotions that kind of cover up the other emotion. And the horses always show me with their body language when somebody is, expressing an emotion, but it's not actually the one. And there was actually a movie that articulates this so beautifully. It's called The Mustang. It was in theaters many years ago, but it was about a prisoner, like a prison, and they were bringing wild Mustangs into the prisons and having the prisoners kind of rehabilitate them. And there was a Mustang that just like would not, like wouldn't conform, like would not be broken. And one of the prisoners was working with this particular Mustang, and the prisoner was in prison. It was very safe to show anger, but it wasn't safe to show anything else. And so he was angry in front of the horse, and the horse wouldn't come anywhere near him. And then when he broke down and cried about the grief that he was feeling for the reason he was in prison, the Mustang, which Mustangs don't come near humans very easily, came right up to him and like basically put his head right next to his head, showing that grief was the actual real emotion. So I was curious what you all think about the concept of like when you have these multiple, like if you're feeling joy but you're also feeling sadness. Curious what you think about that, because I found that fascinating as I was learning and moving through, looking at different people and what they were going through, and myself included, of like, really feeling a deep sadness, but like that was kind of buried or suppressed. But the other emotions that I was expressing, they were present, obviously, but they weren't the actual one that was needing to be expressed.
I mean, I totally, totally resonate with that because I think that's really true. And I think also what ends up happening is that sometimes Mary Jane and I love words, like we're always talking about words and words, but I think sometimes we don't have the words for what we're feeling. We can't articulate in that way. Sometimes words are so limiting. And so for me, I know what's happened is that I couldn't articulate it. And the only way I could articulate it sort of didn't grasp or didn't like explain how I was feeling, but yet I used those words because I had really nothing else at the time. And so I think that happens quite often. And I think in our society, there are certain sort of like umbrella words that we use that kind of like prevent us. Like people will just say, I'm just anxious, when really they're sad or they're angry or they're, the myriad, they're fearful. And so I don't know. I think it's almost like there's this one kind of basket or term that they use. I get the same thing when I ask people how I'm working with clients and they say, I'm tired. And I think tired has become this, or I'm stressed, has become this kind of umbrella term, which everybody uses. But there's really so many layers and so many places you could go with that one word. And the only way, to me, I think through that is to get people to start to ask questions. And Seamus is very, famous word amongst many groups, curious about that. Sit there and start to kind of, what am I actually feeling or what's really going on? So I think that, but horses so beautifully, obviously, as do many animals, but I think horses are special in that way, start to pick up on those kind of subtleties, which often escape us. Seamus?
Yeah, just brief, just on that question, like Jen, thanks for the question, and I completely agree, like with that, with the statement around like the two levels of emotion, and kind of what's coming to mind as you were just speaking there as well, Jan, was the kind of the that first superficial, if you want to call it, layer, the soothing layer, the band-aid layer of emotion is maybe the declared emotion of the word, and then the real emotion is the heart emotion, like which kind of our head gets in the way of, the words don't allow us to express the depth of that, and they block us being able to acknowledge even like what's going on and to understand and get curious with the real emotion underneath the declared emotion. So that was kind of what was coming to mind, Jen, as you were speaking. As it was kind of reinforced then, Jan, to what you shared too, is that the different layers there are the inadequacy of language to be able to express and maybe even to block our ability to be able to actually acknowledge that real emotion. And this is the power of curiosity, I think, is when we just begin to notice the blockage that's occurring through what we're the narrative we create and what we believe. And even noticing that can be a great way of, even that small micro step of allowing us then to actually experience and feel the true emotion without any fear, and being able to actually feel the liberation of, oh, now I've got this head out of the way. I've been able to actually make sense of this narrative that's there to protect me. But now I feel that I have the ability to be able to actually remove this kind of safety net that I put in place there to protect me, and get into processing the true root cause emotion. And I think that's basically a game changer, I think, when we kind of create that space, challenge the narrative, and get beneath and gain access to, the true emotion that's been hidden by the declared emotion or the narrative that's there, maybe to kind of um, protect us maybe from the depth and the power of that truly held heart energy emotion, I guess,
I mean, first of all, I absolutely love that, Seamus, that heart emotion, as opposed to like our analytical brain emotion, it's like we analyze things and we're like, oh, okay. And all of a sudden we become very analytical about things like that. It's kind of like, well, this is the way I feel because I read this, and we kind of categorize it, or we put it into some sort of compartment. And and then I also think that words are limiting. And having been through experiences myself, um, where I really didn't have the words to articulate them. And that was what brought me to yoga. I think there was this way of processing those emotions, which is a very heartfelt way because your brain does turn off, through somatically, through the body, which was very, very healing because then it allowed me space and a time to connect to heart. And then I was able to process those emotions on a deeper level. And then I was better able to articulate them if I wanted to talk about them. Um, but I think that somatic, because we do have, like, that's the whole idea of emotions live in our body, and trauma lives in our body. It was the fact that it gives you a way to kind of start to look at that trauma and those experiences on a different level than with your head and in a more heartfelt way. Which is going to go obviously deeper. And the thing about that is it's a process that kind of like you process the layers as you're ready to deal with them. And then as you practice more, I think you heal deeper. So that's just been my experience with, like somatic work.
It's so interesting that you brought up about how focus, because for me, when I'm going through experiences at times, um, my outlet, although I do yoga, and yes, I fully recognize what you're saying. That's definitely true. It does give you something to focus on and move through that with breath. For me, when I paint, that's where sometimes if I'm going through something or I'm trying to heal something or just trying to work through things, that's where I find, I focus. All of the other extraneous stuff sort of falls away and I'm just immersed in that. And as funny as that sounds, it's like when I come out of that practice, like time can pass and I don't even realize how much time has passed. But when I come out of painting and then I relook at those things that have been perhaps poking at me or kind of, making me feel uncomfortable or I'm not quite sure why I'm so upset about a situation. Often there's a clarity that comes with that, with just focusing my mind, um, not in a self-soothing kind of way, but just to focus my mind elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Well, I agree with you. And I think whatever sort of creative mode you use, Mary Jane's a beautiful painter, but I mean, it could be writing. Um, and I think that that's why so much, when you look at art or music or poetry, mm, if you look at if you've ever seen interviews with poets and you read or you see those interviews and you hear, um, like what they were going through at the time they wrote a particular poem or they painted a particular, or they composed a particular, song or music. Often it's time from those traumatic experiences, that very heartfelt kind of non-thinking portion of the mind being able to find an outlet and a way to process and to dive deeper into the deeper layers, those heartfelt emotions versus the very like sort of like brainy emotions or way of looking at things, where also the ego gets involved, where all the judgment starts to happen and the labeling of like, timelines and things like that. That's brain work, like, the timeline we kind of gear ourselves on or put ourselves on to heal from something. It's all the brain telling us we should be doing something that we're not doing, or we should be going through something faster than we're going through it. or we shouldn't have this bother, like this shouldn't be bothering us anymore.
Yes, that's quite the phrase. When I remember when I was restructured out of my job and I basically was going through a grieving process, that was the, you know, like, okay, well, it's been whatever months now. Aren't you over that by now? And I'm thinking to myself, no, that was 31 years of my life. And now I'm trying to figure out who is Mary Jane now? Who am I now? And just working through that process. And it's not an easy process. And yeah, sometimes it feels like January was mentioning earlier, it's sometimes you feel like you take a tiny step forward, sometimes it feels like you take five back. Oh,
Mhm.
for me, it often felt like I was going in circles in a spiral. What am I doing now? So, but yeah, it's quite the process.
It is quite the process. But I mean, if anybody wants to share, feel free. But I do think it's interesting how all of a sudden when we do revisit certain things because of circumstances, how we do heal on a deeper level. And there is a peace that does come, like a freedom that does come afterwards when you're kind of like, you've come to a place of real, almost like this feeling of contentment, like with what you've now, um, where you are, and that process of like, oh, look at where I am now, or to feel that, not in a, over analyzing way, but just in this kind of loving way of, the strength that it takes to look at things and then to come to a place of almost inner peace around it.
Yeah, it really is about it's coming to a place of inner peace and like I was mentioning earlier, there isn't a timeline. Everybody has their own pace for healing, and each circumstance might have a different pace as well, depending on the level of underlying trauma or hurt that's been covered over and healed over supposedly each time. But
Mhm.
yeah, it's there is no set pace, and the naysayers can say what they want to say or expect you to be whatever they want to do, but that's their expectations, and you need to just allow yourself the grace and ease to move through those things at a pace that feels right for you.
And before Jen chimes in again, and a safe place in a community that's going to support you in that process. Because,
Absolutely.
because I think so much of the world, Seamus and I are in a group, and so much of the world, especially in the business world, is not very patient with us going through revisiting those times and feeling those deep emotions and um, points when that happens, sometimes it is very hard to, kind of leave those things, like compartmentalize those things into a into a little box and kind of go forward and move on with your day or get things done or whatever. And I think in a lot of the world, they don't honor that. So I think that that's where a community of beautiful people really can make all the difference, or beautiful horses. And I'll let Jen share.
Thank you. I love the horses, but actually, what I was going to share has nothing to do with the horses. But what I wanted to say was going back to what you were just saying about how every time something, triggers your, I guess it was, I don't know if I'm saying your words right, but like you come back to the same thing that you were suffering from and you heal a little bit better. I was actually reading right before we came on this call, and there's a passage in the book that, if you don't mind, I would love to share it because I think it would
Oh,
be
please
really
do.
useful. And I'll share the book if anybody wants to read it. But it was talking about, it's not, the book isn't Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, but it was talking about that particular book. And if you haven't read that book, Viktor Frankl was in a Nazi concentration camp. And he said that the way he transcended his suffering is everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And that is a quote from the Man's Search for Meaning that's inside the book I'm reading. And then what was happening is that Frankl was recontextualizing the horrific circumstances to hold a profound meaning for the human spirit. So every life experience, no matter how tragic, contains a hidden lesson. And when we discover and acknowledge the hidden gift that's in there, a healing takes place. And so the book that this came from is called Letting Go, The Pathway of Surrender by Dr. David R. Hawkins.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Absolutely beautiful. And one of the things that I was on, I'm doing a program right now. And one of the things that we talked about on Sunday was, I think sometimes for me, that idea of letting something go, it just seems like I'm like, because I know it does resurface and I'm like, it's never going to go. It's just to, my new phrase is just, to the, to the song, is to let it be. Just let it be, and not, because for me, I know that, let it go means it's just going to go somewhere and it's not going to bother me ever again. And that's just my way of thinking about it. But this idea of just letting it be is not expecting, like just knowing that it's probably going to resurface in some form. And that's okay. Just let it be. And so I don't know if that's helpful to anybody.
No, there's a definite wisdom to that. It's letting it be, because you're right. It's letting it go. I mean, yes, to some degree, it's you're releasing control. So there is that aspect to it when you say letting go, but letting it be is more about taking that time to bring into your awareness what it is that's behind the wounds that are resurfacing, and so that we're able to heal.
Mm-hmm.
I said layer by layer.
So I don't know, does anybody have any final thing they'd like to share? If not, we're going to move into a short meditation. Okay. Oh, Sue, feel free to unmute.
I would just like to say how helpful it's been in the all the comments in the chat about me and my dad and this community, and moving on. But equally, maybe I can remember the good times as I move forward, and learn coping strategies for when bad things happen and he's not around to pick up the pieces. So thank you, everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, everybody. And then that's what community is all about. So we will move into our meditation. So find a comfortable position. You can be seated, lying down. If it feels right to you, feel free to gently close your eyes and take a deep breath in. And exhale slowly. Allow yourself to settle into this space. Know that you are safe, supported, and exactly where you are meant to be. Bring your awareness to your breath. Inhale deeply and exhale gently. Just feel that rhythm of your breath. Steady and soothing, like waves upon the shore. With each inhale, imagine drawing in energy and light. With each exhale, release tension, worry, and fear. Allow yourself to relax, feeling the support beneath you. Now visualize yourself holding a very powerful light in your hands. This light represents your inner wisdom, your ability to heal, and your courage to see yourself fully. And as you bring that light towards yourself and the light touches you, not only feel its warmth spreading through your body, but feel it illuminating and revealing all that is within you. And as this light expands, let it gently reveal memories, emotions, and experiences that have been tucked away. Some may be soft and comforting, while others may feel heavier. Simply observe without judgment. This is a moment of self-awareness, a moment of seeing yourself with compassion. If a memory or emotion rises to the surface, take a deep breath in. As you exhale, whisper to yourself, I honor what is revealed to me. I see it. I allow myself to feel it. And with this, I open up the path to healing. There is no need to force anything. Just allow the light to shine where it is needed. Trusting that healing happens in its own timeline. Now see this wound that has been revealed to you. And just envision it beginning to close, not to erase the past, but to transform it. The pain lessens, the edges soften, and in its place, a scar remains. Not as a sign of weakness, but as a symbol of resilience and strength. Whisper to yourself, I am healing. My scars tell the story of my strength. Feel the warmth of the truth settling into your heart. Let it radiate through your body. And as you continue to breathe, visualize this healing light expanding, filling every part of you with peace. Each layer you have touched today has been met with love, and in doing so, you have softened its hold upon you. Know that healing is not about erasing, but about embracing. It happens in waves and layers in its own time. And each time you return to yourself with love, you deepen your renewal. Healing is not about erasing, it's about embracing. Take one more deep breath in and exhale gently. Begin to bring your awareness back to your body. Feel free to move in any way. And when you're ready, open your eyes, carrying a sense of wholeness and renewal with you. With this affirmation, I honor my journey. I heal in layers with patience, grace, and love. So, thank you all so much. We are so pleased that you joined us here today. If you're not connected to us, which you all are, but for those of you who are listening to the recording, feel free to connect with Mary Jane and I. Just so everyone knows, we have our next workshop, online workshop together, Mary Jane and I, for Spirit-Born Imaginings on March 22nd. We're having a spring equinox special pricing starting tonight. Yes, tonight.
Yes, it is midnight tonight.
Tonight.
Our
I'm like,
time.
yeah, midnight tonight for till Sunday at midnight.
Mhm.
And we would love to see you there. And so have a blessed weekend, everybody. And thank you so much.
Yes, thank you for joining us, and may your day, the rest of your day, depending on where you are, and the rest of the week be filled with blessings. So thank you.
Absolutely. And Rosemary, we're sending you lots of love.
Absolutely.